Danny Martinez ran through the golden wheat fields, his bare feet making soft sounds on the warm earth. The 8-year-old boy laughed as his brown dog, Buddy, chased after him. The wheat was almost ready for harvest, standing tall and proud, under the bright morning sun of New Geneva. "Come on, Buddy," Danny called, spinning around with his arms out wide. "You can't catch me." The dog barked happily and jumped up, trying to lick Danny's face. They rolled together in the soft dirt between the wheat rows. This was Danny's favorite game. Every morning before school, he would run out to play with Buddy in the endless fields that surrounded their small farming town. New Geneva was a peaceful place. The human colony had been here for 20 years, growing food for other worlds in this part of space. The colonists were farmers, teachers, doctors, and shop owners. They had come here to build simple, quiet lives far from the busy cities of Earth. Danny's mother, Lisa Martinez, stood on the porch of their small white house. She could see her son playing in the distance. She smiled and waved when Danny looked her way. Her husband Carlos was in the barn, checking on their farming machines. "Danny, breakfast in 10 minutes." Lisa called out. Danny waved back and kept playing with Buddy. The morning air was cool and sweet. Birds sang in the trees that lined the fields. It was a perfect day on a perfect world. High above in space, 3 dark ships moved toward New Geneva. They were long and sharp, like black knives cutting through the stars. These ships belonged to the Zephian Empire, one of the oldest and most powerful forces in the galaxy. On the lead ship, Commander Vexgal looked down at the small human world with cold, yellow eyes. The Zephyrians were tall, thin creatures with gray skin and no hair. They had ruled space for thousands of years. To them, humans were nothing more than young animals that had learned to use tools. "Report," Commander Vexgal said to his officer. "Unauthorized settlement detected, Commander. Species classification: human vermin. Population approximately 1,000. How long have they been here?" 20 local years, sir." Commander Vexgal made a sound like a hiss. "Too long. These creatures spread like insects if left alone." "Begin." "Pest removal procedures." "Yes, Commander." The 3 Zephyrian ships dropped down toward New Geneva. Their black hulls gleamed in the sunlight as they fell through the sky like deadly shadows dot in the town center. Jake Thompson was starting his morning work at the communications center. Jake ran all the equipment that kept New Geneva connected to other human worlds. He was drinking coffee and checking the daily reports when his screens began flashing red warnings. "What the hell?" Jake muttered, setting down his cup. The sensors showed 3 unknown ships approaching fast. Very fast. Jake's hands flew over his controls. He tried to send a message to the incoming ships. "Unknown vessels, this is New Geneva Colony. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions." No answer came back. Jake felt his stomach drop. He had been a soldier once, before coming to New Geneva. He knew the look of warships. These were not friendly visitors. His fingers hit the emergency button. Warning sirens began wailing across the colony. People stopped their work and looked up at the sky. They could see the 3 black shapes getting bigger and bigger. Lisa Martinez heard the sirens and felt fear grab her heart. She looked out at the wheat fields where Danny was still playing. "Danny," she screamed. "Danny, come home right now." But Danny was too far away. He heard the sirens but didn't understand what they meant. He had never heard them before. Buddy started barking at the strange sound. Carlos Martinez came running out of the barn. "Lisa, get in the house." "Not without Danny." Carlos grabbed his wife's hand. Together they started running toward the wheat fields. Other families were doing the same thing, calling for their children, trying to reach safety. The Zephyrian ships opened fire. Bright blue beams of energy shot down from the sky. Where they hit, buildings exploded into flames. The school was the first to go, then the hospital, then the shops on Main Street. The aliens were not trying to capture anything. They were trying to kill everything. Jake Thompson kept working even as his building shook from the explosions. He managed to load all the colony's records into an emergency pod. Pictures, videos, names of every person who lived here. With shaking hands, he launched the pod toward space. Maybe someone would find it. Maybe someone would know what happened here. A blue beam hit the communication center. Jake Thompson died at his postdoc in the wheat fields. Danny finally understood that something terrible was happening. The sirens were so loud now. Smoke was rising from his town. His parents were running toward him, but they were still far away. Buddy was scared. The dog pressed close to Danny's legs, shaking. One of the Zephyrian ships flew low over the fields. A pilot saw movement in the wheat, a pest and its animal. Without thinking, he fired a single shot. The blue beam hit the ground near Danny. The boy was thrown backward by the blast. When the light faded, Danny Martinez lay still in the dirt. Buddy whined and licked his young master's face, but Danny would never wake up again. Lisa and Carlos reached their son 3 minutes later. Lisa fell to her knees and held Danny's small body. Her screams could be heard even over the sounds of destruction. The attack lasted exactly 12 minutes. When it was over, 847 people were dead. 23 of them were children. The Zephyrians had turned a peaceful farming world into a burning graveyard. Commander Vexcaw watched the flames from space. He was already thinking about other things. This had been routine work, nothing more. File the standard report, he told his officer. Unauthorized pest settlement removed. No Zephyrian casualties. The 3 ships turned and flew away into the darkness between stars. They left behind only smoke, fire, and the bodies of innocent people. But Jake Thompson's emergency pod was still flying through space, carrying the story of what happened on New Geneva. In a few days, it would reach other human worlds. Soon after that, it would reach Earth itself. The Zephyrian Empire had made their worst mistake. They had just taught humanity what it meant to be afraid. And fear, as they would learn, was something that made humans very, very dangerous. Jake Thompson's emergency pod drifted through space for 6 days before it reached the patrol ship, Liberty Bell. Captain Tony Rogers was having his morning coffee when his sensor officer picked up the small, damaged pod. "Sir, we have a distress beacon. Looks like it came from the New Geneva sector." Captain Rogers frowned. New Geneva was a quiet farming colony. They never had problems. "Bring it aboard. Let's see what they need." When they opened the pod, Captain, Rogers found data files, video recordings, and a simple message. "They killed everyone. Tell Earth what happened here." The videos made Captain Rogers sick to his stomach. He watched the peaceful colony turn into hell in 12 minutes. He saw families running, buildings burning, and children dying. The worst part was a recording from a security camera that showed a small boy playing with his dog, then being killed by alien weapons. Captain Rogers sent everything to Earth Defense Command immediately. A message would take 2 days to reach Earth, but it carried the most important news in human history. Admiral Kate Sullivan was in her office at Earth Defense Command when the message arrived. She was a tough woman who had spent 30 years in the military. She had seen wars, battles, and death. But nothing had prepared her for what she saw on her screen. The videos from New Geneva played one after another. Kate watched families being murdered. She watched children running for their lives. Then she saw the recording of Danny Martinez in the wheat field. The little boy was laughing and playing with his dog when the alien ship fired. The blast threw him backward, and he never got up again. Kate Sullivan had seen many terrible things in her life. But she had never seen anything that made her this angry. She called her assistant. "Get me President Harrison. Emergency priority. Tell him it's about dead children." President Ben Harrison was in a meeting when the call came. He left his advisors and went to his secure office. When Admiral Sullivan's face appeared on his screen, he could see something was very wrong. "What happened, Kate?" "Mr. President, we have a situation. A human colony has been destroyed. Everyone is dead. Women, children, families. All of them. Who did it?" "Aliens, sir. They call themselves the Zephyrian Empire. They killed our people like they were insects." President Harrison felt his hands shake. "Show me." Admiral Sullivan sent the files. President Harrison watched the videos in silence. His face grew darker with each recording. When he saw Danny Martinez die, the President of Earth closed his eyes and took a deep breath. How many people knew about this colony? It was registered with Colonial Affairs. About 1,000 people lived there. And now they're all dead. "Yes, sir." President Harrison was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke in a voice that was calm, but full of rage. "Call an emergency meeting. I want every military leader, every defense minister, every shipbuilder in the solar system. We're going to have a conversation about the future of humanity." 2 hours later, the most powerful people in human space gathered in the Global Defense Council chamber. Admiral Sullivan played the new Geneva recordings for everyone. The room was completely silent as they watched the massacre. Mike Chun from Intelligence stood up when the videos ended. He was a quiet man who knew more about alien species than anyone else on Earth. "The Zephyrian Empire is old," Mike said. "They've been in space for thousands of years. They control about 40 star systems and have never lost a war. They think younger species are animals that need to be controlled or removed." "What's their military like?" asked General Lisa Park. "Strong, but traditional. They rely on heavy ships and energy weapons. They've never fought anyone who could really fight. Back, most species surrender when they see Zephyrian ships. Well, they're about to meet a species that doesn't surrender." President Harrison said. The president stood up and looked around the room. "I want everyone to understand something. These aliens didn't attack a military base. They didn't destroy ships or weapons. They murdered farmers. They killed children who were playing in fields. They did it because they think we're animals." The room was quiet. Everyone was thinking about Danny Martinez and the other children. "What are your orders, Mr. President?" Admiral Sullivan asked. "We're going to teach them that Earth's children are not animals. We're going to build the largest fleet in the history of space. We're going to find these Zephyrians and show them what happens when you kill human children." The news about New Geneva could not be kept secret for long. Within hours, the videos were on every news channel on Earth and the colonies. People watched, their screens in shock and horror. They saw peaceful families destroyed by aliens who thought humans were nothing more than pests. The reaction was immediate and angry. Protests filled the streets of every major city. People carried signs with pictures of Danny Martinez and the other children. They demanded action. They demanded war. In a small town in Texas, Rose Martinez sat in her living room watching the news. Rose was Danny's grandmother. She had not seen her grandson in 2 years, but she loved him deeply. When the reporter showed Danny's picture on the screen, Rose started crying. The reporter knocked on her door an hour later. "Mrs. Martinez, would you like to say something about your grandson?" Rose Martinez was 70 years old. She had lived through hard times and good times. She had raised 5 children and buried her husband. But she had never felt pain like this. She held up a school picture of Danny, smiling at the camera. "This was my grandson. He was 8 years old. He liked dogs and playing in fields, and helping his mama in the garden. He never hurt anybody in his whole life. Rose looked directly into the camera. I want to ask the people watching this, what kind of universe allows creatures to kill children for playing in a field? What kind of monsters look at a little boy and see an animal that needs to die? The interview was shown on every channel across human space. Rose Martinez became the face of humanity's grief and anger. Meanwhile, across Earth and the colonies, factory owners and shipbuilders were getting phone calls from the government. Ryan Blake owned the largest shipyard near Titan. He had built cargo ships and passenger vessels for 20 years. Mr. Blake, this is General Park from Earth Defense. We need to talk. What can I do for you, General? We need ships, lots of ships, military ships. Can you build them? Ryan Blake thought about the videos he had seen. He thought about Danny Martinez. General, I've been building peaceful ships my whole life. But after what I saw today, I'll build you warships. I'll build you as many as you want. How fast can you start? I'm already making calls to my workers. We'll start tonight. All across human space, the same conversation was happening. Shipbuilders, weapons makers, and soldiers were getting ready for war. Earth had been peaceful for generations, but that peace had just ended. The Zephyrian Empire had made the worst mistake in their long history. They had killed human children and thought no one would care. They were about to learn that humans cared very much about their children, and when humans got angry about their children, they became the most dangerous species in the galaxy. 72 hours after the new Geneva videos reached Earth, something happened that had never been seen before in the galaxy. Every single shipyard in human space began working at full speed, 24 hours a day. Ryan Blake had not slept since the government called him. His shipyard near Titan was now building warships instead of cargo vessels. The workers came in shifts that never stopped. Welding sparks flew through the darkness as humans built instruments of war. How many ships can we finish this month? General Park asked during her daily call. If we keep this pace, maybe 200, Ryan said, wiping grease from his hands. Not enough. Double it. General, I don't have enough workers. You do now. We're sending you 10,000 more people. Retired shipbuilders, engineers, anyone who knows how to hold a wrench. They're coming from all over Earth. Ryan looked out at his facility. It was already crowded with workers. Where will I put 10,000 more people? Build more workspaces. Build them fast. Money is not a problem anymore. The same conversation was happening at every shipyard, every factory, every military base. In human territory, Earth had decided to build the largest war fleet in galactic history, and they were going to do it in months instead of years. Admiral Sam Crawford was 70 years old and had been retired for 5 years. He was working in his garden when 2 military officers knocked on his door. Admiral Crawford, President Harrison needs you. Sam looked at the officers with tired eyes. Boys, I'm done with war. I grow tomatoes now. Sir, have you seen the new Geneva footage? Sam's face changed. He had seen it. Everyone had seen it. The image of little Danny Martinez dying in a wheat field was burned into every human's memory. What does the president want? He wants you to command the largest fleet humanity has ever built. Sam Crawford looked at his peaceful garden, then at the officers. Give me 10 minutes to pack. 2 hours later, Admiral Crawford was at Earth Defense Command, looking at plans that seemed impossible. The military wanted to build 500,000 warships. This is insane, Sam said to Admiral Sullivan. No one has ever built a fleet this big. No one has ever killed our children before, Kate replied. Can it be done? Sam studied the numbers. Ship production, crew training, weapons manufacturing, supply lines. It should have been impossible. But humans were doing impossible things. Now, it can be done, but we'll need to change everything. Civilian ships, military ships, even old museum pieces. Everything that can fly needs to become a weapon. Then make it happen. Across the solar system, engineer Amy Foster was leading the strangest project of her career. She was turning luxury passenger ships into war machines. This used to carry rich people on vacation, she told her team as they looked at the Golden Star, a beautiful cruise ship that normally traveled between Earth and Mars. What's it going to carry now? Asked her assistant, Joe Kim. Missiles. Lots and lots of missiles. Amy's job was to weaponize every civilian ship in human space. Cargo haulers became mobile missile platforms. Mining ships got military railguns. Even small personal yachts were fitted with weapons. The aliens think we only have a few military ships, Amy explained to her workers. They're about to learn that every human ship is now a military ship. The work was hard and dangerous. They were putting weapons on ships that were never designed for combat. But the workers didn't complain. They had all seen the videos from New Geneva. Lieutenant Chris Parker watched the transformation from his patrol ship, the Wolf. 3 days ago, it had been a simple border patrol vessel with light weapons. Now it was being fitted with experimental plasma cannons that could punch through heavy armor. Think these new guns will work? Asked his gunner, Pete Wilson. Only one way to find out, Chris said. But I'd rather find out by shooting Zephyrians than by guessing. The Wolf was just one of thousands of ships being upgraded. Human engineers were working miracles, turning peaceful vessels into tools of war in record time. Meanwhile, on Earth, military bases that had been quiet for years suddenly filled with activity. Sergeant Nick Rodriguez had been retired for 3 years after 20 years of service. He was called back to train the thousands of volunteers who wanted to fight. I'm too old for this, Nick told his wife as he put on his uniform again. The aliens killed children, Nick. You're not too old to make them pay for it. Nick arrived at the training base to find it packed with people of all ages. Young college students, middle-aged workers, even some older folks like himself. They all wanted to learn how to fight in space. Listen up, Nick shouted to his first group of trainees. 3 weeks ago, you were civilians. Now you're going to be Space Marines. We don't have time for a long training program. We're going to teach you the basics, how to fight in zero gravity, how to use military weapons, and how to stay alive in a space battle. One young woman raised her hand. Sergeant, how do we know we'll be ready in time? Nick looked at her seriously. Because the alternative is letting child killers think they can do it again. Are you ready to let that happen? No, sir. Then you'll be ready when we need you. While Earth prepared for war, Ambassador Sue Williams tried one last attempt at peace. She sent a message to the Zephyrian Empire through diplomatic channels. To the leadership of the Zephyrian Empire, I am Ambassador Williams, representing humanity. We wish to discuss the recent incident at New Geneva Colony. We believe this was a misunderstanding that can be resolved through dialogue. The Zephyrian response came back 3 days later. Commander Vexka himself replied to the message. To the human vermin, your unauthorized expansion into Zephyrian space has been corrected. As a gesture of mercy, the Empire offers to relocate remaining human settlements to designated reservation worlds where your species can be properly supervised. This offer will not be repeated. When Ambassador Williams read the response, she felt sick. The aliens saw humans as animals to be put in cages. There would be no peaceful solution. She took the message to President Harrison immediately. They want to put us on reservations, she told him. President Harrison read the Zephyrian message twice. His face grew darker each time. Mr. President? Ambassador Williams asked, What should I tell them? Tell them we declined their generous offer. Is that all? President Harrison looked out the window at the shipyards that covered the horizon. Thousands of new warships were taking shape under the bright lights. Actually, prepare a full broadcast. I want every species in the galaxy to hear our response. 2 hours later, President Harrison stood before cameras that would carry his words across known space. Behind him, images showed the massive fleet taking shape around Earth. To the Zephyrian Empire and all who are listening, you killed our children. You destroyed peaceful families. You did this because you think humans are animals that need to be controlled. The president paused and looked directly into the camera. You made one small mistake in your calculations. Earth's children are not animals. Earth's children are protected by the most dangerous predators this galaxy has ever seen. U.S. Images flashed on the screen showing the growing fleet. Hundreds of thousands of ships in various stages of construction. You wanted to treat us like animals. Now you'll learn why Earth's predators evolved to be the dominant species on our world. We're coming for you, all of us, and we're bringing 500,000 warships to teach you the difference between children and prey. The broadcast ended with a simple message. Remember Danny Martinez. Across the galaxy, other species watched in amazement. No one had ever challenged the Zephyrian Empire like this. No one had ever built a fleet this large. No one had ever spoken to the ancient powers with such defiance. The humans, it seemed, were not like other species. They were something new, something dangerous, something that would change the galaxy forever. 6 months after Danny Martinez died in a wheat field, the largest fleet in galactic history gathered at the edge of the solar system. The site was so vast that no single camera could capture it all. Ships stretched from Mercury's orbit to beyond. Mars, a metal cloud of human anger, made real. Captain Alex Turner stood on the bridge of his destroyer and looked out at the impossible sight. His ship was called the Danny Martinez, painted with the image of a small boy playing with a dog. Around him flew 22 other destroyers, each named after a child who died on New Geneva. The Sarah, Kim, the Bobby Chun, the Lucy Park, the names of innocent children now written on instruments of war. Status report, Alex said to his crew. All systems green, Captain, replied his weapons officer, Janet Hill. The new plasma cannons are ready for combat testing. Alex nodded. His ship was one of the fastest ever built by humans. It carried weapons that could punch through the heaviest alien armor. But more important than the technology was the crew. Every person on his ship had volunteered to avenge the children of New Geneva. Take us to formation position with the main fleet, Alex ordered Dot as the Danny Martinez moved through space. Alex could see the full scope of humanity's response. Massive battleships that looked like floating cities. Carrier ships packed with fighters. Cruisers, destroyers, frigates, and support vessels. Some were brand new, built in the months since New Geneva. Others were old cargo ships now bristling. With weapons. The count was exactly what President Harrison had promised. 500,000 warships. On the other side of the galaxy, the Zephyrian Empire was finally starting to pay attention to the humans. For months, their border stations had been sending strange reports. Ships were disappearing. Entire patrol fleets were going silent. Commander Vexgal, the one who had destroyed New Geneva, was called to meet with the Empire's high command. He walked into the chamber expecting to receive a medal for his pest control work. Instead, he found angry faces and troubling news. Explain this, Supreme Commander Zeltar said, showing Vexga a recording. The video came from a border station's final transmission. It showed human ships unlike anything the Zephyrians had seen before. They moved in perfect coordination, using tactics that seemed impossible. When they attacked, the station's shields failed in seconds. The pests have military vessels, Vexkal said, confused. This is unexpected. Unexpected? Zeltar's voice rose. They have destroyed 47 of our installations. They have captured 3 of our ships intact. Our scouts report a fleet so large it blocks out stars. Vexkal felt cold fear for the first time in his long life. How many ships? Our best estimate is 500,000. The chamber fell silent. In their thousands of years of conquest, the Zephyrians had never faced a fleet even 1/10 that size. Meanwhile, human scout ships were gathering intelligence throughout Zephyrian space. Lieutenant Jun Walsh piloted her stealth ship through the outer territories, watching and learning. "Command, this is Scout 7, she reported back to Earth. "I'm observing a Zephyrian patrol group. 12 heavy cruisers. Traditional formation. What's your assessment, Scout 7? Jun watched the alien ships move in their ancient patterns. They're powerful but predictable. They fight like they've never faced real opposition. Their tactics haven't changed in centuries. Understood. Continue observation." Jun's reports were sent to Dr. Beth Cole at Earth Defense Research. Beth was humanity's expert on alien technology. She had spent months studying captured Zephyrian equipment, looking for weaknesses. "Their shields are strong, but they regenerate slowly," Beth explained to the military leaders. "If we hit them fast and hard, we can overwhelm their defenses before they can recover." "What about their weapons?" Admiral Sullivan asked. "Powerful energy beams, but they take time to charge between shots. Our rapid-fire weapons should give use an advantage in close combat." Most importantly, Beth had discovered something about Zephyrian psychology. They've been the dominant power for so long that they can't imagine losing. They'll underestimate us until it's too late. The news about humanity's fleet spread to every corner of the galaxy. Other species watched in amazement as the humans openly prepared for war against the most powerful empire in known space. On the world of Halara, the bird-like Kellerans had suffered under Zephyrian rule for 200 years. Elder Kreetal called. "An emergency council. The humans are actually going to fight them," she told the gathered leaders. "They're not running. They're not surrendering. They're building a war fleet." "It's suicide," said another elder. "The Zephyrians will crush them." "Maybe," Kreetal replied. "But what if they don't? What if the humans actually win? For the first time in centuries, oppressed species across the galaxy began to hope. Back at Earth, Marine Colonel Dan Brooks was training the most elite soldiers humanity had ever produced. His boarding teams would be the first to set foot on enemy ships when the fighting started. "Remember your training," Dan told his Marines as they practiced in zero gravity. "These aliens are strong and fast, but they've never fought humans before. They don't know what we're capable of." Each Marine carried a photo in their armor. Pictures of the children who died on New Geneva. Danny Martinez smiling at a camera. Sarah Kim building a sandcastle. Bobby Chun riding his bike. "Why do we fight?" Dan asked his troops. "Remember Danny Martinez," they shouted back. The phrase had become humanity's battle cry. It was painted on ships, carved into weapons, and tattooed on soldiers' arms. 3 simple words that reminded everyone why they were going to war. As the human fleet prepared to move, the Zephyrian Empire finally understood the threat they faced. Emergency fleets were called back from across their territory. Ancient warships that had been mothballed for centuries were brought back to service. Supreme Commander Zeltar stood in the command center of the Imperial homeworld, watching reports flood in about the approaching human force. "How is this possible?" he asked his advisors. 6 months ago, they were a minor species with a few colonies. Now they have the largest fleet in galactic history. "Perhaps we underestimated their capabilities," suggested one advisor. Zeltar's eyes flashed with anger. "They are young animals. who learn to use tools. We have ruled space for 10,000 years. We do not lose to creatures who have barely left their home system. But privately, Zeltar was worried. The human fleet was moving toward Zephyr Prime, the Empire's capital world. They weren't trying to capture territory or negotiate terms. They were coming straight for the heart of Zephyrian power. It was a bold move that no species had ever attempted. It was also exactly the kind of aggressive, all-or-nothing strategy that had made humans the dominant predators on their home planet. On the bridge of the Danny Martinez, Captain Alex Turner received the final orders from Earth. All ships, this is Admiral Sullivan. We've spent 6 months building this fleet. We've trained our crews and prepared our weapons. Now it's time to show the galaxy what happens when someone kills human children. Alex looked at the photo of Danny. Martinez taped to his command console. A little boy who just wanted to play with his dog in a wheat field. Navigation, set course for Zephyr Prime. Maximum speed. Yes, sir. Course laid in. All ships, this is Captain Turner. Follow the Danny. Martinez, we're going to bring justice to the ones who murdered our children. 500,000 human warships turned toward the heart of the Zephyrian Empire. They carried with them the rage of an entire species and the memory of a little boy who died for no reason except that aliens thought his life didn't matter. The Zephyrians were about to learn that every human life mattered. And when humans decided to defend their children, they became the most dangerous force the galaxy had ever seen. The human fleet arrived at Zephyr Prime like a storm of metal and fire. 500,000 ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system, so many that they blocked out the light from distant stars. On the bridge of the Danny Martinez, Captain Alex Turner stared at the enemy homeworld ahead. It was a beautiful blue planet, surrounded by space stations and defense platforms. Millions of Zephyrians lived there, going about their daily lives. They had no idea that their empire was about to fall. Enemy fleet approaching, reported his sensor officer, Mark Davis. I count 800 Zephyrian warships moving to intercept us. Alex smiled grimly. 800 ships sounded like a lot, but humanity had brought 500,000. Signal the fleet. Attack formation Delta 7. Remember, we hit them fast and hard before they can organize. Across human space, Admiral Sullivan was coordinating the largest battle in galactic history from her command ship. She watched the tactical display as her forces moved into position. The Zephyrians are forming traditional battle lines, reported her tactical officer. They're trying to use their heavy ships as anchors. Just like Dr. Cole predicted, Sullivan said. They're fighting the same way they have for thousands of years. Signal all light forces to begin the swarm attack. The human strategy was simple but devastating. Instead of meeting the Zephyrians in traditional ship-to-ship combat, thousands of smaller human vessels attacked from all directions at once. Like a pack of wolves bringing down a giant, they surrounded each alien ship and hit it from every angle. Captain Alex Turner led his destroyer squadron straight into the heart of the enemy formation. The Danny Martinez moved so fast that Zephyrian gunners couldn't track it. Alex's plasma cannons fired continuously, punching holes in alien shields. Direct hit on their command cruiser, shouted his gunner, Janet Hill. Their shields are down. All ships, focus fire on the wounded cruiser. Alex ordered .23 destroyers, all named after dead children, concentrated their fire on one enemy ship. The massive Zephyrian vessel, which had terrorized space lanes for centuries, exploded. In a ball of fire, the pattern repeated across the battlefield. Human ships were individually weaker than their alien opponents, but they worked together like parts of a single organism. Where the Zephyrians saw individual ships to be destroyed, the humans created an overwhelming swarm that couldn't be stopped. Supreme. Commander Zeltar watched his empire's fleet being torn apart from his command. Ship above Zephyr Prime. Ships that had never been defeated were exploding one after another. His crews were panicking, sending desperate calls for help. "How many have we lost?" he asked his aide. 200 ships destroyed, sir. 300 more damaged. And the humans? Maybe 50 ships lost. Their smaller vessels are too fast for our targeting systems. Zeltar felt something he had never experienced before, the fear of defeat. In 10,000 years, the Zephyrian Empire had never lost a major battle. Now they were being destroyed by creatures they had considered lower animals. "Signal all remaining ships," he ordered. "Fall back to planetary defense positions." But it was too late. The human fleet had broken through the outer defenses and was approaching Zephyr Prime itself. Captain Turner's squadron led the charge toward the planet's surface. "This is Captain Turner to all ships," Alex broadcast. "We're going straight for their capital city. Time to show them what happens when you kill human children." The Danny Martinez dove through Zephyr Prime's atmosphere with hundreds of other ships following. Below them, the alien capital city stretched for hundreds of miles. Tall towers and ancient buildings that had stood for millennia were about to witness the end of their empire. Lieutenant Lynn Stevens was flying her fighter above the Imperial Palace when she opened a channel to broadcast across the entire planet. Her voice carried to every Zephyrian on their homeworld and to watching species across the galaxy. "Attention, Zephyrian Empire. 6 months ago, you murdered a human child named Danny Martinez. You killed him because you thought he was an animal. You thought his life didn't matter." Lynn's fighter swooped low over the palace where the Zephyrian Emperor lived. "Today you learn that Earth's greatest export has always been war, and its greatest crop has always been soldiers. You killed our children. You thought we were weak. You were wrong." As if to prove her point, the sky above Zephyr Prime was filled with human warships. The sight was so overwhelming that many Zephyrians simply stopped and stared. They had never imagined that their mighty empire could be brought to its knees. The Emperor himself, Zelkai the Eternal, stood on his palace balcony, watching the human fleet darken his sky. He was over 3,000 years old, and had ruled when many species were still primitive. He had never seen anything like this. "Your Majesty," his advisor said, "we must evacuate you to the bunkers." "No," the Emperor replied quietly. "It's over. Send a message to the human fleet. Tell them the Zephyrian Empire surrenders unconditionally." The surrender message reached Admiral Sullivan within minutes. She could hardly believe it. The most powerful empire in the galaxy was giving up after a single battle. "All human forces, this is Admiral Sullivan. The enemy has surrendered. Ceasefire and begin occupation procedures." Across the galaxy, other species watched in amazement as news of the battle spread. The Zephyrian Empire, which had ruled space for 10,000 years, had fallen in less than 6 hours. On Kalara, Elder Kree Tau called another emergency council. "The humans did it," she said, her voice full of wonder. "They actually defeated the Empire. What do we do now?" asked another elder. "Now we fight," Kreetal replied. "The humans have shown us it's possible. Time to take back our freedom." Similar conversations were happening on dozens of worlds. Species that had lived under Zephyrian rule for centuries began to rise up. The human victory had started a galactic revolution. 3 days later, Emperor Zelkai stood in chains aboard a human transport ship. He was being taken to Earth to stand trial for the massacre at New Geneva. The Emperor who had once ruled 40 star systems was now a prisoner. Captain Turner visited him in his cell. "Do you remember New Geneva?" Alex asked. "I do not involve myself in minor pest control operations," the Emperor replied coldly. A little boy named Danny Martinez was playing with his dog. Your commander killed him. Do you know why? He was in Zephyrian space without permission. Alex stared at the alien emperor. He was 8 years old. He was playing in a field. And you killed him because you thought human children were animals. The emperor said nothing. You're going to stand trial on Earth, Alex continued. You're going to answer for every child who died. And the galaxy is going to see what happens when someone hurts our kids. 6 months later, a memorial garden was built on New Geneva, where the colony once stood. The planet was green again, with new wheat fields growing where the old ones had burned. At the center of the garden stood a statue of Danny Martinez playing with his dog, cast from metal taken from the first Zephyrian warship that humanity had destroyed. The inscription at the base read, "Some chose to see vermin wear the universe." Placed children. They learned the difference. Visitors came from across the galaxy to see the memorial. Many brought their own children to play in the gardens where Danny had once run through the wheat. The site had become a symbol of something new in the galaxy, the idea that some things were worth fighting for, no matter the cost. Earth's message had echoed across known space and would be remembered forever. Touch our children and face the Chi. Wrath of 500,000 warships. The age of the Zephyrian Empire was over. The age of humanity had begun.